Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending Dbtech's RAS Manager Training webinar. My name is Lisa Chboder, and I am an analyst for Dbtech. Our first presenter, Greg Park, who is the Director of Enterprise Solutions for Dbtech, will discuss some RAS functionality. Our second presenter, Paul Rogers, who is the Director of Implementation and Support, will then review the process of regular maintenance on your system. This is a client-only webinar, so we will cover what is needed to support your RAS environment, as well as any management items you may have overlooked. If you have any questions, please type them in the area of your screen designated for questions or in the chat box. We will answer as many questions as time permits at the end of this presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and a copy of the PowerPoint slides will be available upon request. Please email any requests to info@dbtech.com. I will now turn this presentation over to Greg Park.
Thank you, Lisa. And before we get started here today, I just want to thank you all for being Dbtech customers, for showing us your support, and for attending today's webinar, which I hope will be a benefit to you all. You know, the point behind this presentation, this isn't the last one we'll be doing, and in fact, we hope this is the first in a series of webinars that we want to provide to our customers to help them get better use out of the system. And today's webinar is focused on the RAS Manager. What we're doing today is we're going through a few of the features within the system that we feel that a lot of people may not use on a regular basis, or as you know, through talking with our clients, find that you know, they don't have a great understanding of some of these points. And so we wanted to go through them today and review some of these topics. So let me do this. Let me start or share my desktop with you, so that you're seeing what I'm doing here on my system. Okay, what I'm going to do is log in as RAS Manager into my system, which is on my laptop here. Now, something's going to be a little bit different, and anyone who notices, please respond in the chat box. But here we are. We're logged in. What we're going to start with today is in the System Setup, which is in the main menu, System Setup. And typically you see this information here on your screen, but if you hit the Edit button, you can make modifications. Now, I know a lot of you may stop here because it's this warning, and I'm going to show you the section that could cause you some trouble. So let's continue on with editing these settings. We're going to start in the Paths, in this first tab within the System Settings. And it's in here that you'll find is where the paths are to our data and our compressed files and to our view path. Obviously, on your system, it will be a server name. Since this is my laptop, I'm running this off my C drive. But this will be your server, and you probably don't want to make changes to these areas here without input from Dbtech or having Dbtech do it themselves. If you change these, it can cause some problems. So I'd be very wary about changing the paths on this screen. But what you want to focus in on here is these sections right here. Warning messages, application errors. When these paths, the space allocated to this area, fall below a certain megabytes. And you can see this is set up for 150, and 50 for each of these little dialog boxes. And what will happen? What will happen if you fall below this space is that the RAS Manager will receive a message. You will know that you're running low on disk space in these areas before it becomes a problem. This is very important because, if the system goes, runs out of space and it can't collect new reports, and you're going to get calls from your customers, and that's no good. Let's set this to a space, to an amount where you can be notified as soon as it's, something you need to address. Now, the application error is something different. This is where some of the services will start stopping, and the application will actually stop capturing information. So I wanted to make sure that you saw this screen, and this is an area that you can set up to help you to avoid issues going forward. Let's move over now to the login settings. Now, one of the things I asked you to try to notice when I logged into RAS Manager was that I didn't have to log in. You didn't see me going in with 000 or whatever the administrator's, your administrator password or login and password are. That's because I set up this system here for single sign-on, and you can do the same thing. I would, again, suggest that you contact us before doing this, but essentially it's just this. You can see that the security server share is set up for my particular system, and it's set up to automatically log in. I'm going to get the user name from the security share. This could also be set up for a domain. So this is your method, and of course the logins would have to match between the security share and RAS, but assuming that they do, the user will not be prompted to log into RAS. Now, if the user does not have, they've logged in generically on a network computer and try to access, of course, if it doesn't recognize that ID, from the network user, it's going to ask, don't recognize, what is your username and password? So there's no problems with that moving forward. Again, if you want to set this up, give us a buzz. We'll walk you through some of the more finer details of this process. Down below is where you see the password options. Now, this isn't an issue if you have a single sign-on, but if you don't, this is an area that you're going to want to look at. Do these match your overall password security parameters for other systems? What is the mixture of alphabetic and numeric characters? How long between password uses? Can they be reused? What is the history kept in the password database? And so you're going to want to take a look at this and make sure that it is matching your corporate policies. Also, down below here, this is an important aspect to look at. You're going to want to have this checked off with something. If you left this unchecked, as I did, users could sit in the system, leave, and be gone for the entire day, logged in. You're going to want to set this to something. Again, typically you're going to have a policy around this. Set it for that amount of time. The parameter below that is how often do you want to, how often between logins do you want to make a user inactive? And this is set for 180 days, so if I, logged in on one day and didn't log in until 190 days after, my account would be deactivated. It wouldn't be deleted. It'd still be out there. Just have the inactive check off on that. You just have to reactivate that user. You're going to want to set this for something. And it's a great way of, just in case you're not notified when employees leave the facility, to remove their names. This is a fail-safe to help you deactivate those users who don't use the system. Down below here, you're also going to see a supervisor's password. This is the main login. For those of you RAS managers out there that are using the 000 login, this is going to be your password. If you ever need to change it, this is where you need to do it. So this is login settings. We're going to move over now to display settings. And what this is in your current RAS system, you have a few user or defined fields that you use today. The report name, the capture date, the capture time, the report date, the department for when you split a report. But there's many more fields that you can add, you can capture within a document. How might you use something like this? Well, consider all being hospitals out there. A lot of you are hospital customers out there. That you have a face sheet document that is created at the point that you register a new patient. And you want to capture that into RAS. And you can do that. That's no problem. But say you also want to be able to capture it and know for each document who the physician is related to that patient. Who's the attending physician associated with that account? Well, you can set up RAS to do that. And then one of your fields in here could be account name. You see in here I have department and split and other fields, but you could set this up for whatever you like. And if I were to switch over right now, just log in as a RAS user. I'm going to log into my system. You can see all the different folders that I currently have in here. If I were to edit one of these, you'll see that I have other field variables available to me. This is at the time of capture, but there's also methods for users to enter this information. Again, we're not going to get too deep into this, but just know that your RAS system can be set up to capture metadata on a lot more information that is related to your inbound documents. Let's cancel that out and go back over to my display settings. All right. Let's go over here to idle time. Now, this is where you're going to want to set up your idle times. And why might you do this? This is really to synchronize with your backup processes. So perhaps you have them set up for the exact same time every night, and you could set that up. So it'll go idle, which means our services will stop, if things will stop capturing within the RAS system. And so you can set that up for a generic, start and stop time, which will happen every day. Or you can come in here and be very specific and set it up for different dates, or different start and durations, depending on the day of the week. So you're going to want to set that up again to help you make sure that the files are all available for replication in your backup process. That's idle time. Let's go over here a little further to access logging. You're going to want to go back to your systems right now and check how your system is set up in regards to the screen. What this is at the heart of our audit trails. You may take advantage of this today, but within RAS and pretty much within all of our applications, every action within our environment, any program or application that we have in the system here, can be audited. Now, you could be very generic, and let's just say you just want to log whenever a report is opened. So you'll be able to run audit trails and be able to tell who's opened which report. But perhaps you want to have a deeper level, a greater level of audit within the system. So now, with this checked, but I have this second option checked, I'm going to be able to tell who has not only opened the report, but who has printed it, perhaps who has emailed it or copied it or run any number of different functions within the RAS environment. Notice down here as well, there's a protected health information tracking, and this is related to your titles database, which we'll look at in a second. But what this will allow you to do when properly set up is to be able to do protected health information audits, meaning you're going to be able to look at the system and know who has looked at, who has emailed, who has copied, who has printed, any kind of report that contains sensitive patient information. We'll get to looking at that from the titles perspective in just a moment. So that's access logging. You want to take a look at that and make sure you know how that is currently set up. All right, let's come out of System Setup, and we'll move over here to the main menu. And what I want to jump into is folders. Now, this is my folder setup. And what I wanted to bring to your attention here is, a lot of people set these up so that people can see the reports they need to see, which is what folders are all about. But you may not know that you can also configure automations to run based on a report qualifying for one of these folders. So you see here in my configure workflow that I can run automatic printing, external command processing, which is the integration module, or automatic email. Well, how might I use something like this? Well, again, let's go back to our use case from before about the face sheets. Maybe I do now collect face sheets into RAS, and I've set it up so the system has a user-defined field for a particular physician ID. And I create a folder for physician Jones based on their ID. And I've set it up, that folder, so that every face sheet qualifies for that folder. Well, what I can do now is whenever a document comes into the system and it is for Dr. Jones and it qualifies for that folder, I can automatically print it if I wanted to I might not want to do that. I could automatically email it. Well, you might want to do that, but you also might want to use a fax server that is accessible to your IT staff that can be communicated with via email. A lot of fax servers can be. So you set it up, and it could automatically, using automations from the folder level, fax this document directly to the physician's office. So these are just a couple different ways you can use that, and I know a lot of folks out there don't realize that they can run automations from the folder level. So I just wanted to show you that. Let's go back out to the main menu and over to my titles database. Well, I have a bunch of different titles in my system, as you can see. And let's just take a look at any of these particular documents. Let's just double-click on it to look at the settings for this document. You know the title, that's how it gets it, when RAS captures a report, it's automatically capturing the title. You can have a replacement title. I know a lot of customers out there have strange titles depending on their vendor. I've seen some come in as like codes, AMF 239. And if that's the title and people know it by that, then great, keep it as that. But if they know it by another name, you can have a replacement title set up in here. But the one thing I wanted to direct you at is the PHI flag. You'll notice here that it's unchecked, but this document may contain PHI, so I'm going to check it off. And what this is going to allow me to do is now anyone who now opens this file or runs any kind of action through the RAS user interface, it's going to be audited specifically. I can run audit reports on it and say, show me every report that contains PHI that people have looked at in the last 24 hours. This gives me an ability to have a deeper dive into my audit trails. The other aspect I wanted you to look at here is the report lifetime. Now, what we're going to do here, my system, everything's unchecked. I want to keep everything forever in my system, but in yours, you may not. You may have lifetimes on reports where you want to mark reports as deleted. Now, Paul's going to get into more details on this side of things, on purging and things like that. But what we're doing right here is that we're saying that we only really need to keep this report for 12 months. Okay? And I could set that to any number of different variables, anything down to 1 day, which doesn't seem reasonable, but you could do it, up to 999 months. So this is where you want to set up your report lifetimes. And if you don't have that set up, take a look. Also, for my healthcare customers out there, take a look at your PHI flag. And, if you want to get that level of audit, just need to check these boxes on all the titles in your system that contain patient information. So that's what I wanted to cover under the titles section. The last bit that I wanted to cover was and is management reports. Now, if you're following me along at home there and going through your RAS system, as I am right now, go over here and look at your management reports. There's a lot of different management reports in here that you can run, but the ones I thought you would be most interested in here have to do with auditing users. Login reports. This will allow you to check in on every person that has failed a login. Let's just run it just to see what the information is. Notice that I can choose my sort order for this report, either by date or location. I can filter this report based on the date. So if, say, I want to do a date range, I just want to do, failures in the last week, I could set that up. Perhaps I want to do a specific location or just look at a particular user. I could do that. Let's just run this. Oh, one thing before I go on and run this report. Notice this feature in here, to schedule or save a definition. Here, this is going to allow you to schedule this management report to run on a regular basis. You can set it up to run daily or weekly or monthly or periodically or just once or on demand. This is where you want to be able to schedule your reports. And if you don't have this, it's probably because you're in an older version, and you should be calling us to update your system. Let's just run this. I'm not going to schedule this report. Let's just run it. So it is telling me, because I ran my whole database, the ID of the computer, the user who was attempting to log in, and these are all failed logins. And this is important information to take a look at on, as you see fit. Other reports that I think you should be looking at is report access log by date. And what this is going to give you is a report on who has looked at which reports. Notice the PHI flag down here. If I just wanted to run a report on documents that contain PHI, this is where I do it. And this is why it's important, if you're going to use this feature, to go through your titles and make sure they're properly set up. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to run it. Let it go to my screen, and it tells me that by date, because this is the date order I selected, that the RAS manager viewed these reports, because this is access log. And this keeps going and going. And again, I had the ability in there to, you could go see, I have more than just view. There's also view, and then you can see that this user printed. All the options within the RAS viewer are available in here. So you can see this user copied a bunch of stuff out. That's interesting. Why would he be copying so much information out of the system? At any rate, this is the access log, which is a very important management report that you're probably going to want to schedule on a regular basis. All right, let's close that out. And this other report that I think you'll be very interested in looking at, especially for those who are running a numerous amount of ad hoc type reports, is the reports never accessed report. And what this is going to tell you is all those reports out there that are sitting in your system, it's going to tell you whether they've been looked at or not. Actually, it's going to tell you that anyone that qualifies for this one are reports that have never been looked at. And so it's, looking at my entire database. So all of these reports out here that I have in my test system, I've never opened, I've never done anything with. So in your environment, if you want to take a look at this and, perhaps consider turning those reports off that users aren't even using. It's something to look at. And that's it for the topics that I wanted to cover. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand the presenter role over to Paul, and he's going to be taking you through the remainder of this presentation. And I'll be joining you at the end to answer any of your QA questions. If you do have those questions, please put them in the side panel. Lisa's going to take a look at them, and at the end of the presentation, we're going to answer all your questions as time permits, of course. So at this moment, I'd like to hand it over to Paul.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So Greg just went over some of the settings in RAS Manager for a RAS system. I want to focus more on maintenance tasks. What kind of tasks would I be concerned about on a daily basis, or a little longer term on a monthly or quarterly basis as a RAS manager? For the most part, when I'm talking about things that I'm checking on, I'm talking about everything in the context of the RAS capture machine. The RAS capture machine is really the heart and soul of any RAS or RAS-I system. So in our terms, the capture machine is the computer that has the RAS application services running on it. For some customers, they may run on the RAS data server. However, for our preferred configuration, and certainly if you have any type of volume going into your RAS system, we really prefer that to be on a separate PC. So that's what I'm on right now. I'm on my RAS capture machine. And having said all that about the services, the first thing I'd want to do as part of daily maintenance is just make sure that the services are running. A lot of the calls we get, especially early in the morning, have to deal with some kind of issue with the services just stopping for some reason. And having said that, what are some reasons that the services would stop? Greg had kind of mentioned during his presentation, idle time. It's important to set idle time to factor in things like backups. That's very commonly one of the issues we see with services stopping is for some reason we can't access a file that perhaps a nightly backup has exclusive use of. So that's one thing that might cause one of our services to stop. Other things might be some kind of virus scan activity that's happening, doing the same thing as a backup, trying to grab exclusive use of a file, or even something like a Windows update. I know just a couple months ago there was a pretty large Windows update that Microsoft rolled out, and we had issues with a couple customers with the services stopping because the machine was so intently busy downloading these updates. So in order to check to make sure the services are running, I could do it one of a couple ways. I could just go and look in the Windows Service Applet, which is what I'm looking at now. All of our services start with the word RAS. So I've got the RAS Capture Engine, the RAS Files and Capture Engine, and the RAS Preprocessor installed on here. All three of those are running. Most customers probably have a lot more than those three services, but I've got just those three installed. So I can easily see at a glance that they're running here. If they're stopped, I could start them up here at the top in the toolbar. So that's the Microsoft way of checking the services. We've also got our own application that any longtime user of RAS is familiar with, and that is the RAS Service Monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. And I can tell here, because I have the service monitor running on the same PC that's actually running the service, if you look over to the left here, you can see those services that I just looked at in the service applet show highlighted in green here, which means they're running. And then I've got up here in the top window, I've got a list of everything that's running and any activity that's going on. I know a lot of our customers just leave this running on the capture machine. It's easy to tell at a glance what's going on with your system. Any errors that are encountered will show up here in the body. You can also run this on a machine that's not necessarily the capture machine. You can run it on a remote machine. When you do that, you won't have these lights turning red and green to show the services are running, but it'll still show you the activity and what's going on and any errors that are being generated. One other feature of the monitor, which has been helpful for customers, is if I go up to Monitor, Options, and Notifications, you also have the ability to come in here and configure this to send you emails to let you know what the status is of the RAS services. And when you do that, what it'll do is it'll send you an email once you put your SMTP server name and your email address in here. You can configure it on an interval. So I'm going to go ahead and just configure this to be every 3 hours. Once I set this up, what it'll do is every 3 hours, the monitor will send me an email and show me a list of any errors that have been encountered from the services. And it'll also show me a list of the services and what their current status is. So really what this is kind of a heartbeat notification. It'll send you periodically an email saying these are your services, they are or are not running. I know some people want to see an immediate notification of when a service stops. This doesn't do that. It's more of a heartbeat notification, just to let you know right now your services are running or not running. So I'm going to back out of here. And okay, so I've gone ahead and I've checked my services. I know everything is running. Not entirely out of the woods here. We also have some applications that run as desktop applications. More and more as we do things with external devices like printers and label printers, we really need access to the desktop. We really need access to other hardware devices that a user would be printing to. So I'm going to mouse over some of these things I have down here in my system tray. So for example, right here I've got, this is our integration application running. This is our management reports engine running in the tray, and this is our RASi export engine running in the tray. Any application like that that needs desktop access, you just want to check and make sure is running here when you go ahead and check the RAS services. More likely than not, if it's something like this, you'll probably know beforehand from users. The users will be contacting the help desk telling you that labels aren't printing, and they'll know before you do. But if you're checking this capture PC on a regular basis, you want to come in here and just make sure that all your desktop applications are running. And a word about those, I know we've had a lot of customers that have been moving their capture machines into a virtual machine environment. Speaking from support loves virtual machines because it just seems like it's so much easier to work with these type of machines and to add resources. But when you're configuring our services and these desktop applications on a virtual machine, it's just we have certain settings we recommend on the server as far as what it does and doesn't do with allowing remote desktop connections. Since more often than not you're connecting to a virtual machine through a remote desktop, it's just important to configure it properly so you don't have a lot of these sessions starting up alongside of one another. But again, you can contact support if you have questions about moving your capture machine into a virtual machine or how you would set up a virtual machine. It probably goes outside of the scope of this webinar, but I just thought it was worth mentioning. Okay, so I've got my services running, I've got my desktop application running. Probably the next thing I would do if I was a RAS manager and just wanted to follow up on my RAS system is come into RAS Manager and just check my RAS queue. So this is our RAS queue. This is the active queue of reports that are being processed through the services. This is where things that are actively being processed, you'll see them in here. They should show a status of on hold equal to false. In this case, I've got 4 things that show on hold true. So I've got 4 things that for some reason encountered an error and are showing on hold. If you look at these top 2, on hold, unable to obtain access to main report file, that more than likely, that's kind of a textbook error for something that had trouble accessing a file, probably due to something like a backup. If I come over here, I can check and see that this was placed in the queue right around 2 o'clock in the morning, so that kind of sounds suspiciously like a time when a backup would be occurring. I can just go ahead and release that from the queue. More than likely, that's just going to go ahead and process through without a problem. And you also see I've got a couple other things in here that got put on hold for no format found. Of course, anybody familiar with RAS and RASi knows that our services, when they're looking at data, when they're looking at reports, they do a series of pattern matching and data collection to determine what type of report it is. It's possible if it's something new that the system hasn't encountered before, it'll go ahead and put it on hold. What I can do is I can right-click one of these, click on View Report. This will show me what's actually on hold, what it doesn't have a format for, and so it put it on hold. So now I know by looking at it, okay, I just need to go into RAS Manager in the formats, create a new format to capture this report. I'm able to do that. I'm able to go ahead and look at that because I'm actually on the machine that's processing this report, so that report file is located on this machine. It's worth mentioning, we, meaning Dbtech support, we have the ability to move the RAS queue so it's actually on the server, which has a couple benefits. Once I have the RAS capture queue on the server, number one, if I'm on another machine. Right now, if I was on another machine and did that right-click and view, I would get an error. I would get an error saying I'm unable to view that report if I'm doing it from another machine. If we move the capture queue up to the server, then anybody who has access can right-click and do a view report from within the capture queue. But that's really a secondary benefit of doing that. The main benefit is if I move this capture queue up to the server, then it's very, very easy for me to add another capture machine to my RAS system to do processing of reports. More and more we've found that as customers are adding automations or adding e-folders or e-forms, they start sending more reports. You know, it's likely that if you just had a system that has one capture machine, it may not keep up with the volume of reports now and the volume of data that you're sending to your system. It's very easy to add another capture machine. It's certainly much easier when we have that queue sitting on the server. So that's another benefit of doing that. A third benefit is space. So right now, when I'm looking at this on the capture machine, this file actually resides locally on this machine. Ordinarily, a capture machine doesn't have as many resources as a server would. So it's possible if this report doesn't have a format associated to it. If you're not watching this queue on a regular basis, if you start sending thousands and thousands of this report, it's going to start taking up space locally on this machine. Greg had gone through and showed some of those space threshold settings in his presentation. Once you get below a certain level, the first level he showed you was a notification level. So once you drop below that level, it'll start to post warnings. It'll start to post warnings to RAS Monitor, and if it's emailing you, that email, you'll start to see these notification emails that it's getting short on space. The second threshold is a point at which the services will just stop and shut down. So it's one of the benefits of moving the queue up to a server. Usually servers will have more space allocated to them, so you're less likely to have this issue with running out of space with local report files that are being processed. Okay, so let me get out of here. So those were just some of the daily tasks that I just went over. Some of the more long-term tasks that we frequently get asked about are right here on this screen. A common question to us is the reindex and the purge utilities. How often should I be reindexing or purging a RAS or a RAS-I system? So let me start off by just explaining the difference between the two. A reindex, our data tables in RAS and RAS-I, each one of them has an index file. So every time you capture a new report or add a report, we add a record to this index file. What the index file is used for, it's a transient file, which means it's kind of a temporary file. It's really used for searching. So things like when you're going into folders and going from one folder to another, it's the index file that allows us to quickly move from one record to another. So when you do a reindex on a table, what you're doing is you're rebuilding the index file for that table. It's different than a purge. What a purge does is actually removes any deleted records from a database table, and then as the second part of the process, it rebuilds the index file for that table. So deleted records. What do I mean by deleted records? If I come into my RAS viewer program here, so I'm looking at my RAS system and looking at all the reports in my RAS system. I've also got a deleted reports folder that everybody's probably familiar with. I can go in here and I can see the deleted reports. So what that means is if I go ahead and delete a report out of my RAS system, I'm not actually removing it from the data table. What it actually does is flag it as deleted, so it moves it to the deleted reports table. These are the types of records that will get removed when you do a purge. It's worth noting, Greg had also gone over during his presentation the titles and how you can set a report lifetime to a title. So he had picked a title and set a report lifetime for 12 months for that title. Well, once it gets past that interval, once it gets past, a report gets past that 12-month threshold and is 13 or 14 months old, it doesn't automatically go to the deleted reports folder. In order to do that, you would need to come into utilities and then run this delete reports utility. You just choose delete based on report lifetime, and at that time, what this utility does is go through the reports in your RAS system, and it determines per report, this report should be deleted after 12 months, and it'll mark it as deleted. Once you have that, you'll have these reports in your deleted reports folder. The only way to permanently get rid of them is to do a purge. The purge will take those deleted reports out of your table and then rebuild the index file for that database table. So it's doing a little bit more than reindex. It's going to take a little bit longer. The downside of either one of these processes, the positive is each process you will see some performance benefit from each one. Rebuilding the index file makes it more efficient, better balanced. You should see a little bit of a performance improvement. Doing a purge, besides doing the reindex, it actually will shrink the size of your database tables a little bit and will also physically remove those report files, so you'll actually see some space savings. The downside is we need exclusive access to the RAS system in order to do that, meaning we need to get users out of RAS and RAS-I. And depending on how large your RAS system is, that could be anything from 30 to 60 minutes to could be 3 or 4 hours in order to run this utility to purge the database table. The good news is Dbtech support does have the ability to do this process, what we call offline. So if you call us, we can take a look at your system, and we would connect to your system and start this process offline, which means users would still be able to view reports and still be able to do work, and we would run this process, which would take several days. That would actually do the rebuilding of the table and the rebuilding of the index while users are in the system. So greatly minimizes the amount of downtime. We still need a little bit of downtime at the end once we're completed. We need to get users out long enough to just switch the two files and get the new file into place. But for a lot of customers, it's much better because it takes what would be a 5 or 6 hour process down to an hour, 45 minutes, something like that. So if this is the type of maintenance you've considered doing, but you're leery about doing, taking users out of the system, please feel free to call us. We'll take a look at your system and give you a better idea of whether it's feasible to do an offline purge or reindex, and give you an idea how long that takes. I should mention the purge and reindex we do on our main tables. That would be in RAS-I, it's the patient folder or the patient document table, and in RAS, it's the main report file, this file that we're looking at here. Okay. I think that concludes it for what I was going to talk about. Again, if anyone has questions, if you have a question that doesn't get addressed in the Q&A session here, I would encourage you to call support. You can also email us at support@dbtech.com, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. With that, I'm going to turn this back over to Greg Park.
All right, thank you, Paul. And I have Lisa compiling the questions out there, and I'm sure I see that there's a few to answer. So let's go over to Lisa and hear the questions.
Hi. First question, can we also send CSV files to RAS?
CSV files, so comma-separated valued files. The answer is yes. CSV files are text-based files, separated by a delimiter, comma in this case, sometimes semicolons, but they're text files. The problem is that these files typically do not have a structure like a report, right? So it doesn't have a centered line at the top. It doesn't have this type of structure that other reports have. But fortunately, we have ways around that. One of the things I'd show you is in the capture settings within RAS Manager, there's an ability to set up variable capture sources. And you can actually set up a capture source that says, okay, whenever a report comes in from this directory, we're going to say it is this title, a CSV file. And so you can force an inbound document to have a specific title. And so this is one way to handle these CSV files. Now, the other way is through the help of us in Dbtech is we can help you with a script that when these files are encountered by the platform, they can take the name, the report name of the file. So that's a method we've used with some of our other customers in the past to get CSV files into RAS. But to answer your question, yes, you can put CSV files into RAS. Next question.
Is there any plan to add more key fields?
That's a good question. Right now, no. The user-defined fields that you saw in the system is the limit that we have in this particular platform. This is sort of the reason that we've come up with our e-folders platform. If you're not familiar with that, give us a call. We'll be happy to tell you what that's all about. But essentially, that's a way of getting an unlimited amount of user-defined fields to report against. In our e-folders environment, we have users now that are setting up employee folders, and the employee databases are, the Social Security number, the employee number, the name, the department, the title, the hire date, last evaluation date. You can have as many different user-defined fields in that system as you'd like, and then pull any report from any system into that employee. It also comes with the ability to scan new documents into that record. But to go back to your original question, no, we're not adding more user-defined fields into RAS, but if you have a specific situation in mind which requires a lot more fields, I urge you to come talk to us about that and see if the e-folders platform will be a fit for you.
Okay, next question. How does the system use the PHI field for audit reporting, security, limit access?
So the PHI field is used for audit purposes, audit only. You can't use it for, I've never looked, I don't think you can, but it's not used for building folders, that sort of thing. It is really meant to run your audit reports. The ability to go through the system and say, show me everything that users have done with reports that contain patient information. So this way, you get a much deeper dive into the types of activities people are doing with information that contains protected health information. You don't want folks going into the system and printing out tons of this information. You lose control over it that way. And in our RAS-I system, that goes even deeper, obviously. A lot more information about what users are doing in that environment. But the PHI, to go back to your question, the PHI flag is strictly used for auditing purposes.
Is there any way to make a change to only show when services are down?
To make a change only when services are down.
Yeah, I think that it probably has to deal with RAS Monitor. So right now, the notification feature with RAS Monitor can just send this heartbeat notification, meaning it's kind of sending you a status. Right now, these are the errors that have been encountered from your services, and this is the statuses of your services running or not running. We haven't built yet a mechanism to send an automatic notification that a service is down. One of the reasons it's possible to run RAS Monitor from any PC other than the PC where the services are actually installed. So I think that's one of the issues that makes it a little bit more problematic. And I know a lot of our customers, once they want that level of troubleshooting, there are other either third-party packages, or I believe Microsoft may even have something that gives you that functionality. But it's something we've talked about. It's kind of on the development list right now.
Great. Any other questions, Lisa?
Yeah, any plans on time data extraction?
Ooh.
Well, I can tell you that right now we're making a change to data extraction that'll be coming out in our next build, which should be released probably within the next 2 or 3 months. We're changing data extraction to work off a queue, so it's going to be more like auto print or integration. The way data extraction works now is if you configure a data extraction against a report, it runs in real time as the report's getting captured. The queuing means that it will actually get queued up and there will be another concurrent service running. So if it's a data extraction that takes a long time to run, it's not going to interfere with anything else that's being captured from the RAS system. Plus, you have the ability then, since it'll have a queue and then a completed queue, you'll have the ability to go back in and re-queue things that have run. However, it doesn't. We won't have the ability to set up a time data extraction. It's something we could take a look at. But right now, we'll just have the queuing is going to be the next enhancement that comes out with data extraction.
Terrific. I know that there may be some other questions, but I think we're running against our time limit here. And any other unanswered questions, we will get back to you directly and answer those questions. But before you go running off to take lunch or whatever you're doing after this meeting, I just wanted you to take a couple minutes to consider a couple promotions that we have out there right now. And the first one being a RAS test system. You know, for some of our clients utilize this on a regular basis. They update their test system before they update their production system. They try new automations within this test environment, you know, and try things out before putting them into production. And in a lot of places, this is a must-have feature. And we recognize that, and we come up with a new method of implementing a test system in your environment for a very low price, monthly price that you can keep as long as you need it, and we can also implement additional modules in that environment so that you can check those out. So if you're interested, want to check out a test environment, give us a call, give your salesperson a call, or contact support, either way, and we'll talk to you about it and what it's involved. The second point that I want to make sure that you understand is that Dbtech offers remote management. And this remote management can be anywhere, anything between just logging into your system on a regular basis to make sure that services are running and that there's nothing, you know, caught in your queue, and that everything is operating smoothly, up to actually running your entire environment, setting up your automations, setting up users, and, you know, bringing in new applications to the platform. So if you're in need of assistance in running your RAS system and you want to lean on us for short-term or long-term, give us a call. We'll work it out with you. And lastly, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, I hope this is one of many webinars that we provide to you, our customers. And next time when we provide this, you know, say in a month or so, we're going to go through the frequently asked questions that have come through our help desk and talk about those in our webinar. But we also want your input. We want to hear the questions that concern you. You're trying to do something new in RAS. Perhaps you'd like us to cover that. Have questions, say, setting up formats on a new system. We want to hear these ideas about educational webinars that we can give to you guys for free for being great customers. And so that's how I wanted to leave it. And on behalf of everyone here at Dbtech, I want to thank you again for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate you all as customers, and we want to always give you the best service possible. So thank you very much for attending today, and we look forward to serving in the future. Take care.